Chris Hughes, we're ready to start the meeting.
Thank you, Jane. Can you confirm that we have a quorum and that the officers are ready for us to proceed?
Yes, we are correct and the officers are present.
Great. Prynhawn da pawb. Good afternoon, everyone. Croeso. Welcome to today's meeting of Social Care and Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee, where we are all attending remotely. I'm Councillor Chris Hughes, and I will be chairing this meeting today. In addition to committee members, we also have non-committee members, cabinet members and officers joining us today to help with our decisions. I can confirm that the committee chair has conducted a sound check before the start of the meeting, so I can assume everyone can hear me. Yep. Can I remind members that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live streaming fail, the meeting will continue and a recording of the will be made available through the council's website following the conclusion of the meeting. Can I remind members that translation facilities are available and to choose your language of choice. If you wish to speak, please use the raised hand function. You can also use the chat facility, but please note that I may not be able to monitor the chat facility during the meeting. All microphones will be muted. If you have indicated your intention to speak, then I will invite you to turn your microphone on. If you leave your device for any reason, can you please ensure that you are muted and that you turn off your video? Right, moving on to the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence. I believe we have apologies.
We have two apologies, Councillor Keith Eales and Andrew Hinchcliffe.
Thank you, Chair. Is there any more? Thank you, Jane. Is there any more apologies for absence? No? Okay, we'll move on to declarations of interest. Members are reminded that they must declare the existence and the nature of their declared personal interests. I will be declaring an interest on item 7B, the Sub-Regional Children's Assessment Centre, as I'm a member of the Friends of Arius Park who have decided to launch an objection to the land transfer, and therefore I will be leaving the meeting at that stage, and the Vice Chair, Councillor Thomas, will take over. Item 3, are there any urgent matters?
No, Chair, not that I'm aware of.
Before we move on, if anyone here is specifically here for item 6 on the agenda, this has been deferred following a request from officers due to unprecedented pressure on social care staff due to the pandemic. So if you're here for item 6, that will be deferred to a later date. Item 4, the minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of November 2020. Is there a proposer that they be a correct record?
Happy to propose, Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Councillor
Happy to second, Councillor Chris.
Thanks, Councillor Dave. Can members show hands that they agree with the minutes? Yeah. Don't see any objection to that, so thank you, everyone. We will move on to item 5, which is to review the forward work programme. Scrutiny Officer Dawn Hughes to take this item. Dawn.
Thank you, Chair. The Social Care and Health Forward Plan is on your agenda packs at pages 10 to 15. Can I just advise you of a couple of items? So for the next meeting on the 24th of February, the annual reports from the Joint Adoption Panel and the Corporate Parenting Board will also be going. In addition, Mr. Polin, the chair of Betsy, will be attending the meeting on the 7th of April, as agreed with the chair and vice chair. And that's all the updates I have, Chair.
Thank you, Dawn. Do any members have any issues or questions with regards to the forward work programme? No? Okay. Can members give us a show of hands, please, that they agree to that they note the forward work programme? Yeah, from the hands I can see, I think that's carried.
Thank you, Chair.
We move on to item 7A, to consider the annual report on play development from Caroline Jones, Leisure Development Officer, and Nathaniel Minard, the Play Development Officer, who is to present the report.
Thank you, Councillor Chris. Caroline Jones, Leisure Development Officer. I just want to update you really on the changes that have occurred with regards to play in Conway over the last 12 months. Some quite significant changes have taken place. A decision was taken that Conway would no longer commission play out of the authority for external organisations to run that function, and it was carried that play would remain in-house. So as of April last year, play development came under my remit, which is that of the leisure development section. So that meant that the existing play development role, which was previously undertaken through Conway Voluntary Services Council by Nathania, was 2P'd across to Conway County Borough Council. That post continues to be funded through the Families First funding that Conway receives. So needless to say, that transfer took place at a fantastic time in the middle of a pandemic. So but I'm extremely pleased to report that Nathania has certainly hit the ground running since she's joined the authority. Despite the restrictions upon us, I'm pleased to report that a number of positive things have happened over the last 8-9 months. We've provided vulnerable children and families during lockdown with play activities, which extended through the school summer holidays. We've engaged with each of the family centres to provide play activities. Every year there's a national play day. So last August, for the first time ever, that was run virtually as an online event for people to log into and enjoy some of the activities that were uploaded there. Conway put in a successful bid to the Child Development Fund for preschool activities to take place in local parks. So we've been instrumental in making sure that the Playful Parents programme, as it's been named, took place in 10 parks with preschool children and their parents attending. Obviously, there's a limit in terms of capacity that one person can do as a play development officer. So in recent weeks, we've recruited a small team of sessional play workers, really to increase our capacity in being able to deliver play activities throughout the year. There's been some online training taking place, and we've been there as a source of assistance to a number of agencies over the last 8 to 9 months. So all in all, I hope you'll agree there's been quite a bit of work going on despite the difficult times that we're in. Last October, Welsh Government announced a support package of funding for local authorities. And as you're aware, local authorities have a statutory duty to complete and submit a place efficiency assessment every 3 years. So we're currently in the cycle, and the next place efficiency assessment submission needs to go in by March next year, 2022. So Welsh Government support package was a mix of revenue and capital funding, of which Conway was successful in being awarded 17,000 in revenue and 102 in capital funds. So those allocations will be utilised through the action plan that we've produced in order to deliver on the place efficiency assessment up until the end of March next year. So I hope that sort of brings you up to date, provides you a snapshot of where play development's at this moment in time. I'm going to hand over to Nathania now, who's going to run you through a presentation which hopefully brings some of what I've just talked about a little bit more to life, so you get a better feel for some of the work that's been taking place and that is due to take place. Nat, if I can hand you over.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you. Nathania Menard, the Play Development Officer. I'm going to present my screen, I believe. Hopefully. Is everybody able to see that?
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, so Caroline mentioned the cycle we're in at the moment in terms of the place efficiency assessment. So we're in the kind of last year really of this year's assessment. So we'll work on the action plan 2021-22, and then we'll begin the work this spring towards working towards the full assessment, which will go to Welsh Government March 2022. Why is this needed? This is particularly needed at this point as children's rights to play has been severely impacted by the restrictions of the coronavirus pandemic. Barriers to play are ever increasing, but even more so now. In the last consultation we did in the Place Efficiency Assessment 2019, during the consultation process, we found that 8 in 10 children in Conway were satisfied with their opportunities to play. There was no kind of indicator between rural children and urban children, children who live in urban areas. Children who lived in rural areas were more satisfied with their opportunities to play. Fewer disabled children are allowed to play out than non-disabled children. This is the feedback coming from the children from the consultation. Only 41% of children said that they were able to play out most days, and 23% hardly ever played out in Conway. Whilst children in Conway generally feel safe, there's parental concerns restricting children's opportunities to play. So even though the children feel safe, sometimes the barrier is the parents actually allowing them to go out and enjoy their communities. And only 20% of children in Conway say they can play in all the places they would like to. The best predictor of satisfaction was whether children were allowed to play out on their own. So again, talking about those barriers about parents, if they're not allowed to play out on their own or access things on their own, that kind of added into whether they felt satisfied or not. Also, the rurality in which the children live. So children living in more rural areas were a lot more satisfied with their opportunities. Interestingly, living in areas of deprivation were not a significant predictor in terms of whether they were satisfied or not. Neither were gender. What we did find from the sufficiency, though, was that it was time. So whether that be the time to play out or being given the time where you weren't structured, space, so spaces to access or spaces to play, not necessarily parks, but just places where children felt comfortable and safe and welcomed. It could be pieces of grass near their house or even just the streets. Permission. So again, whether they were allowed to play out and whether they felt adults were happy with them being in those spaces. Those three kind of things, when they're all working together, deem whether children in Conway are satisfied with their opportunities to play. So again, just to go over what Caroline said, really, some of the highlights we've achieved this year. So play development now sits within leisure services. We sent out almost 700 play packs to children over Christmas for children through the food banks. So things like Play-Doh, footballs, all those kind of nice toys and things that children can play with. We sent those out over the Christmas period to try and increase the opportunities children had. We've run emotional regulation workshops, so explaining to schools and settings and to other staff why play is so important in terms of helping children regulate their emotions during the crisis. And those were received really well by some of the schools. We've been running the Playful Parents provision for the under fives, noting the need for this provision, as lots of groups such as Messy Play Churches and parent and toddler groups and mums and tots groups haven't been able to function, get up functioning and working yet, for whatever reasons, and lots of volunteer-run organisations haven't been able to deliver face-to-face provision for children, so it was felt there was a big gap within early years provision for children and parents to access. So we've been glad we've been able to pick that up. In the summer, we ran the Vulnerable Families Play sessions, so providing respite and opportunities for children. The community play days we've been running online, supporting and mentoring and training for departments such as family support workers to adapt and provide rich play environments for children. So encouraging other services to include play within their kind of strategic role that they play within families. We've initiated the school's play grant with the use of the funding that Caroline was talking about. So the school are able to access funds to encourage them to develop rich play opportunities for the children now, especially with the pressures of having to split the children into bubbles. Lots of schools were telling us that they didn't have enough resources to go around the bubbles. So we're hoping the grant can help with that. And then supporting schools and settings throughout the pandemic. So we've had lots of schools phoning us saying, can we let the children play out? How do we let the children play out? How can we do things? And we've just been trying to, work our way through the guidance and help and support as best as we can. So moving forward, we're looking at the Play Sufficiency Assessment 2022 and working out how we capture the views of the children in terms of play, and not just the restrictions. We don't want them to just tell us about the restrictions. We want to hear their stories about how they've been able to play as well. Ensure that all children and young people's concerns are heard and represented, and develop links with other stakeholders, and hope that stakeholders become accountable for their role in play. We want to develop the Rich Play Award to engage with education and ensure that children's right to play is being upheld in education services. So not losing your break because of your behaviour in class, those types of things. And continue delivery of dynamic play provision across all 5 areas of Conway. So given whatever tier we find ourselves in, we'll find a way to try and deliver things for the families that need it. And then just recommendations. I think Caroline will talk you through those in the report.
Yeah, so really the recommendations are really for members to endorse the changes that have occurred to the play development structure in Conway and support the implementation of the action plan that is part of the paperwork that's gone out with the report initially.
Thank you, Caroline and Nathaniel. There's certainly an awful lot of work gone into the report, thank you for that. Do any members have any questions? Councillor Shotter, I see, has a hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Caroline and Nathaniel. Excellent report. Really nice to know that the children are actually being able to get out and about and hopefully get some really great experiences. Just a quick question. You were saying you're running the online help. How many families are actually accessing this? And do we have any information about the location of the families that are actually accessing this? Thank you.
Nat, can you elaborate a little bit on that for Councillor Shotter?
Sorry, I do apologise. I mean, you're providing, I presume, online for families. Is that correct? Have I grasped this correctly, Caroline?
So a lot of the provision that we've done with families to date has been through Families First. So it's actually been face to face. Some of the online stuff has been more around training.
Okay, thank you. That's where I just missed it. I didn't realise it was just on the training.
Yeah,
it's just that it's maybe a next step that we could even give it to families online who can't have the face-to-face. Maybe. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Shotter. Right, Councillor Nigel Smith, and then the Vice Chair, Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity to speak. Just a question really about community play provision. Recently, the Town Council in Town and Kimmel Bay requested a meeting with officers regarding additional or changing of play equipment to a more modern, more suitable play equipment for younger children. And I can only say that the response from officers was less than positive, even though the Town Council were willing to throw tens of thousands of pounds at the project. And it seemed to be, the biggest problem for me seemed to be the want to implement £60,000 worth of fencing around the play park area. And I just wondered, if as a council we're here to provide the best facilities we can from our residents, I'm just wondering whether putting fencing off a play area for £60,000, which nobody would have the money for, looking at the 119,000 that Welsh Government have given Conway as a whole, it just seems a negative way of going about things, and I just wondered whether officers had any comments about that.
So,
Go on.
no, go on, Matt.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm happy to respond to that. So in terms of parks and provision, that doesn't fall under our remit, that falls under ERF. Obviously, we make consultation and we work with the ERF as best as we can. And in terms of your direct question about fencing, we're in the process of going through a consultation with various other stakeholders. And that was one of the things that was brought up is there a need for all this fencing? We know that other local authorities have looked at removing them in terms of making parks more sustainable. So it is something we're working on. And from the view of the play development team, we'd be saying things like enclosing parks perhaps isn't the best approach in terms of allowing children more space and freedom to play, especially for areas where they might be double fenced in. There's lots of examples across Cymru where there's 2 or 3 fences keeping in the children. So yeah, that's something we work with, but I think ERF might be a better place to answer those types of questions.
Yeah, I was just trying to highlight where it seems that one hand of our council is trying to do one thing, and the other hand isn't quite in sync with what they're trying to do. And whilst as a town council we're trying to help as much as we can by throwing cash at it, our cash at it, it's very frustrating for local members when we get a negative report from officers. There we go. Thank you very much anyway.
Before I bring Councillor Thomas in, Councillor Nigel, you'll be aware that your task and finish group commissioned your scrutiny committee commissioned the task and finish group into play some nearly 2 years ago now, and it's 18 months behind schedule. Do you think, would you consider requiring officers to attend a meeting of your scrutiny committee to explain why they haven't been able to present that so far? Because I think it's really important that, for Nathaniel and Caroline to be able to deliver on the work that they do, the task and finish group really has to conclude its work. That otherwise they're trying with one hand behind their back, I think.
Chair, can I come in on that one? Just to let you know that the Play Provision Task and Finish Group is due to meet on the 2nd of February. So perhaps that, if Nigel wants to attend that meeting and raise his concerns then, I'll make sure the invites, I'm not sure whether you're on the group already, Nigel, but if you're not, I'll make sure you get the invite.
Yeah, I understand what Chris is saying, but I'm also mindful of the fact that we are in an unprecedented pandemic and officers have been shall I say, a little bit less focused on play provision and on other supporting other areas of our community. So I'd like to cut them a little bit of slack, but I understand what Chris is saying. Thank you. Okay,
can I bring Councillor Thomas in now?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks, officers, for presenting the report, and especially to Nat, because I know it's not an ideal time to be taking up a job kind of in the middle of a pandemic, looking at kind of play provision. I had 2 questions, and Nigel's kind of broached the first one really, but I wanted to share my concerns working with smaller community councils that have less cash to contribute to maintaining and ensuring sort of play equipment is there for people to use. We're in a very different situation, so I share some of Councillor Nigel's concerns. But I'll leave that there for now, because obviously that's part of a bigger discussion with other departments. Question for Nathaniel, if possible. During your presentation on the moving forward slide, I couldn't help but pick up that one of your listed elements was to ensure that all stakeholders are accountable for their role in play. And you used the word hope. So I just couldn't help pick up on that. And I wanted to ask, what are we currently doing to ensure that stakeholders are accountable for their part and their role in play?
Hi, thank you. So since the transition over from CVSC, obviously the hope is that since that transition and myself being in local authority, I'll understand the mechanisms more and be able to know who is who a lot more quicker and a lot more appropriately than when I was sitting at CVSC. Because obviously before being an external agency, it was quite hard to know who was who now and what changes happened. And in terms of being within the local authority and working and having Caroline's guidance too, I can able to access the right people at the right time a lot more efficiently. And also previously the group that ran pushed work forward was the Children's Rights and Play Sufficiency Action Group. Myself and Caroline have been discussing this, and we don't think that's perhaps the best way to do it, because obviously children's rights is a lot bigger than just play, and it should be a play kind of group opposed to a children's rights and play. So we're hoping to be able to streamline the people who are involved, the stakeholders who are involved, so that we can try and get actions met quicker.
Thank you ever so much.
Thank you. Can I bring Councillor James in now? Councillor James Lested.
Thank you, Chair. Diolch. I just want to say thank you very much to Caroline and Nathania for their presentation and their report this afternoon, and a huge thank you for all the work that's gone into this as well. It's not been easy for you to prepare this over this last few months, especially in this pandemic. But I just wanted to touch on, I was quite encouraged to see some of the stats around disabled children accessing the play resources that out there, and hopefully that will continue as well. I just wanted to ask, do you continue to work with Mark Richards and Disability Sport Wales, and are we achieving the goals for the InSport Awards around this as well?
Yeah, I can answer that one, Councillor James. Mark's one of my officers within the leisure development section, so although there are many parameters that sort of cross area, if you like, in terms of play and sport. So Mark is definitely a source of information and sort of guidance and opinions, I guess. So anything with regards to disability provision, Mark's sort of our go-to person in a way for a bit of advice, and he helps quite considerably with any discussions that we're having around that area.
That's great. Thanks, Caroline, for that. Yes, so Chair, I would like to propose that we endorse the changes of the development structure in Conway to support the implementation of the action plan, and for members to note this how the authority is working to ensure Conway meets its play sufficiency obligation to recognise the wider impact of play provision today. If I could propose that, please.
Thank you, Councillor James. I don't see any more hands up. Is there anyone else wanting to speak on this?
Yes, I believe Councillor Roger Parry.
Councillor Roger.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I think you said that children prefer to play outside. I think that was said. One of the questions is, what's the age range of these kids that play outside? And why do they want to play outside in particular?
I can answer that question. So in terms of children playing, I don't think we ever stopped playing, but the children who were took into account in this, in the consultation, we asked Year 5 children and I think around permission and about being away from viewing eyes so they can take their own risks and independently play. And being outside also provides lots of opportunities, whether it be climbing trees, hiding in bushes, seeing other people, and just all the opportunities that being outside provide us. I think the pandemic's definitely shown us as well that we as humans don't like being indoors. It's much nicer to be able to access the outdoor environment. So I think, that's kind of what children mean. They do play in indoor spaces, and predominantly the shift was already happening that children were able to access indoor spaces more than outdoor spaces. the kind of key factor in terms of satisfaction was that children needed to be able to access 6 or 7 different places where they felt comfortable and safe to play to feel satisfied. That's what the consultation results kind of showed us.
That's great. That's a great answer there. Thank you very much. So it's not so much structured play, although there is a best part of structural play. But the word I was listed, I wanted it, well, the one word I wanted you to say was imagination, but you've actually covered it really, haven't you? Because when these young people play outside on their own, they have their own choices, and then they are able to build on their own imagination. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think the freedom to be able to make their own choices, develop their own opinions and interests and things, that's kind of the driver behind play. And that's what play provides for children, is those opportunities to become who they want to become.
Okay, so that's what you're going to do, are you, in respect of once life gets back to normal, you're going to try to increase their imagination through play. Is that what it's all about?
Well, once we're back to some form of normality, we'll reintroduce the preschool sessions for the under 5s. We had plans, but they're on hold at the moment, to do after school play sessions for children aged primary school age. You know, we'll be doing holiday provision. So yeah, you know, it's facilitated sessions, if you like, but it's up to the young people to come along and do what they want to do within reason.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I'll just finish off and say, when I was a kid, which was a long time ago, we just went out and played, you know, and we really enjoyed ourselves.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed.
I think you're on mute, Councillor Chris.
I had to mute because my dog was going ballistic. I don't see any more hands up. So we've had a proposer for the recommendations, which can be found on page 47 of the report. Do I have a seconder?
I will second Councillor James's proposal, Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Councillor Dave. So the report isn't going to Cabinet, so it's just for noting. So can we have a show of hands, please? I think that is. Can you confirm that that's
been carried, Sir Chair?
That
looks unanimous. Thank you.
It looks unanimous. Yes. Thank you. Right then, that's carried, and that report is noted. We now move on to item 7. Item 7B, where Councillor Thomas will take the chair for this item.
Can we ask the committee as well to vote on?
The committee will, yeah. Well, I was leaving that to Councillor Thomas, but yeah, I'll be leaving now. So first item will be to vote to go into committee. I'll hand over to you, Councillor Thomas, for that. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chris. And can we confirm Councillor Chris has left the meeting? Committee services? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, he's left.
The first item, as it's exempt, obviously, is to ask for a proposer and a seconder to go into committee. Could I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Councillor Andrew. Could anybody second that? Thank you, Councillor Stu. Okay. Can I ask for a show of hands? We don't need to vote individually.
I think that's carried. I think. Councillor Thomas, we just need to stop recording, so if you can just bear with us for a moment or two.
We will pause there.